Story 1: The Greatest Downfall. I hope someone discovers this. I write to no one in particular, in hopes that this can be read by all. I write this with the intention of giving a warning, straightforward, concise, and latent in meaning. Perhaps an explanation is due. I'll try to keep it brief. It's well known that humans have the capacity to comprehend. We devour layer upon layer of vast knowledge as if it were the most delectable cake in all the galaxies. We are powered by the most complex piece of machinery known on Earth, which has yet to be artificially replicated outside its natural environment. This technology, however, houses a flaw. The more information it takes on, the more viruses it catches. One startling or bad bit of information, and this magnificent machinery can become our ultimate demise. I know this flaw exists because it always has existed. The more powerful something is, the greater the flaw tends to be, and I can feel it. It never leaves me alone. I can't get a second of peace, not even a moment of solitude, for even in my solitude, it's there, it's always there. It's not a who, nor a what, but a thing. The thingiest thing I've ever had the displeasure to come across. This thing appears to be sentient. I try not to be fooled, but sometimes it all becomes too overwhelming. It's right over my shoulder. I know it is, but it hides whenever I glance back, and though I've yet to see it, I dread turning back one day and coming face to face with it. I've heard stories of those who have, and I can guarantee you have as well. These people are currently confessing their sightings and experiences to licensed psychiatrists, or taking prescription pills to dull the anxious feelings. The ones more persistent in their quests to release the identities of the shadow lurkers are, in a best-case scenario, locked in padded cells and spoon-fed twice a day. I know better than to confess. It's always taunting me, straying just beyond my line of my vision. I can feel its claws rake up and down my spine, sending unnatural chills throughout my nervous system. It's always making me nervous. Did I mention that this thing can multiply? Yes, it takes the forms of many beastly spirits, different in shape, but singular in cause. This voiceless being has many faceless sub-entities, and they all are out to get me. My room, my most personal space, becomes invaded by darker forces. They hide in the usual places, under the bed, in the closet, under the floorboards, and even between the pages of my books. It bides its time, waiting for the right moment. When I let down my guard, I know its desires nothing greater than to tear me apart, starting from the inside and working its way out. Even hiding under the covers does no good. In the half of a second I have the covers lifted, they rush out from their hiding places and go under with me. For God's sake, don't get stuck in small spaces with it. It'll try to suffocate you. Perhaps you've felt it, too. In fact, I know you have. That whisper of the dark forces teeming with the knowledge of every abysmal moment, every black day in the history of your memory, is very real, and it haunts all of us. It's a psychological demand to spotlight the unholiest of ghosts, to drag them from the depths and place them center stage in your life. And it very well may be our greatest downfall. This thing, it's out to get me. I can feel it at this very moment. My greatest piece of advice for anyone struggling with this thing is, unless you're ready to go at war with this thing, don't turn around. Story 2. Sibilance. Sleep, strangely, is seen as the best refuge of the sufferer. You've never understood why. This is It's the place where your subconscious has reign, that alien, unknown part of you that hides out of sight and has total control over your body. If anything, sleep frightens you. Having a stranger living in your mind, watching everything, capable of stopping your heart or healing your illness, it's scary, terrifying, even. And the fact is that when you sleep, this person, this monster, can show you anything it likes. What if you've made this creature angry? What if you've done something wrong? You're lying in bed, fingers gripping the covers with white-knuckled, panic born of too many scary stories and horror films. Of course, you're well aware that in reality nothing like that happens, but the darkness grips your imagination and twists, wringing out all kinds of half-formed pictures of monsters and semi-imagined noises. Your breathing grows ragged, your pulse quickens, and a bang from downstairs makes you jump. There's that brief moment of utter terror when countless scenarios of strange creatures and madmen run at full tilt through your horror-drunken mind, where every creak is a new threat and you see things moving in the darkness. And then it's over. You calm down. Remember, you left the washing machine running. You relax, perhaps even chuckle nervously at your own silliness. Still a little shaken up, you go to turn on to your side, wanting to be closer to the wall. There's movement on your arm. The skittering, gossamer light movement of lots of legs, almost without thinking. Conscious thought locked into a cage, constructed of fear. You slam a palm onto the creature. It explodes, and you race for the light, flooding your sensitive eyes and momentarily going blind. The lack of sight exacerbates your childish fright, and by the time the black blossoms have faded from your eyes, you're a gibbering wreck. You stare at the mess on your arm. A few limbs, a smear of guts and blood, just a spider, just a dead spider. You let yourself calm down, wiping away the horrible thing with a tissue from your desk and sitting heavily on your bed, feeling silly now that the room is light. You're not frightened anymore, just tired. You drift off, forgetting the dangers of sleep. It doesn't matter. Nothing happens. At least, nothing happens until you start to feel a faint movement on your eyelids. It's practically nothing, just a light pitter-patter of legs, lots of legs. Your body reaches a conclusion before your eyes do, shooting upright and opening your mouth. In a scream, you slap at your face for whole minutes, cold sweat coating your back. Before you realize that nothing is there, you burst into tears, driven to distraction by the ridiculousness of not being able to sleep. And that's when you start to feel something prickling the inside of your skin. Your first reaction is more weary than afraid. Your mind wants to know what now, what's next. You glance at your hand, look up, glance down, freeze. Under your skin you can see legs and a little round body skittering up and down your musculature. The more you stare, the more you see. There are hundreds of them, appearing and vanishing inside you. Pain flames and dies in your nerves as you feel little gnawing mouths everywhere. You open your mouth to scream, but no sound comes out, just little hairy legs pouring out of your mouth. There's a popping noise as they start to emerge from your eye sockets, but you barely hear it. You're more concentrated on the fact that your eardrums have been long since sacrificed to the onslaught of spiders. You grip helplessly at the air, but there's nothing to help you. You barely feel it as your skin breaks open. As you thrash and bleed, your lips pull back in some hellish grin, your subconscious smiles. Story 3: Horrors of the Commonwealth. The ground was dry and covered in fallen pine needles, rotting away back into the earth from which they came. The smell of moss and pine was thick, engulfing Cliff's nostrils. It was not a discomforting scent, rather sweet, but there was something more, and it was discomforting, unwelcoming, and growing. Now that it was no longer hidden in the aroma of the woods, it now carried as an aroma of its own, growing stronger like the sensation of a discovered wound. He felt unnerved and decided he would be better off heading his way back to camp, find another spot to pee. If Cliff turned right to leave, life may have been a little easier. There would be less nightmares, less things rattling the cage in his head every waking hour of every waking day. But he did not turn right. Almost immediately after he turned left, he found her, the girl the group was chasing yesterday, chasing her around like a chicken that escaped a coop, he thought. She was still covered in mud, now dried into clinging lumps of dirt. She was laying on her back, one arm stretched out in a yawn and the other placed clumsily at her side. She was naked down to the skin, no clothes in sight, and this made Cliff feel very nervous. His first reaction was to look away, as his foster father had taught him before, to never peek at a naked girl, especially one so young. Of course, he was only 12 years old, and his curiosity had gotten the better of him, so he turned his head back to her. This was his second mistake. She was not sleeping. A clear realization he had almost instantly, and wished to God he hadn't. Wished he had left, assuming she was in a deep slumber, and away she was dead. Cliff felt his heart stop in his chest and found it difficult to stand. The urge to cry fell over him like a trap net, trying to pull him down to the ground and keep him there for the hunter to find. The feeling meant to own him entirely, but he could not let it. He had to stay strong. If Ford ever saw him cry, he would surely give him something real to cry about. Was this not real? He this time really looked at what he was seeing, and his stomach tightened like a drum. His knees went numb, but he still managed to stand. Through the clumpy mass of mud he could see her face, twisted in a tangle of knots and bruises, deforming her eyes swollen shut. He remembered how she looked before, beautiful as much as a mud-writhed 14-year-old could be. Now she lay like a crude clay sculpture that had been mutilated by a drunk, petty competitor. There was a dark blue ring around her neck, swollen twice its normal size, and his eyes ventured down. This was it. His biggest mistake. Blood. He saw blood. What had set everything into motion over his last remaining days as a child, the child he had denied himself to be, that Ford had denied him, that set the images that would not stop, nightmares that would not end. Blood. It covered her private places completely, dried to a thin brown crust, matting down the little pubic hair she had grown in her compromised adolescence. Cliff clapped his hands painfully over his face, and at last the tears came, treacherous and screaming with freedom. He could feel the hot, wet drops running through the spaces between his fingers. Oh God! Cliff choked under his breath, and hideous grief and shame washed over him like an acid bath. Oh my God! He choked again, not removing his hands, tears flowing faster and hotter through his hands. She was a virgin, he thought numbly. She was 14 years old, and a virgin she had been. Story 4. The power of belief, be it new or ancient, religious or sacrilegious, empowering or self-destroying. No idea has true power unless it is given the chance to be voiced. shared and believed. Of course, an unshared idea would have some form of influence over whoever privileged its first spark to light somewhere in the depths of his or her mind. However, it is relatively rare for an idea to be held so privately. Humans are very social beings, and it has always been difficult for the majority of them not to share a personal secret or idea with at least one other person, no matter how long they may be able to withhold it. Withdrawing from that tangent, the secluded power of a completely private idea isn't true power at all. Given total or even dominant belief in, preferably a strong imagination or even a detachment from reality, a rift between existing facts and ideas, even a small, vague, relatively harmless idea could swell into factual reality, but only for that one person in particular. This person, unnervingly and obstinately altered by his or her new belief, would then be deemed mentally ill or insane by the rest of humanity, which does not perceive the fact which the sufferer had nurtured and been overtaken by. Not all ideas grow to this strength, and certainly not all private ones. No, the more publicity an idea receives, the more influence it inherits, and the more it will be able to spread, eventually spinning forth an unstoppable cycle of destruction. A handful of the few people straying this far into the concept of conceptualization might recall the original labels of ideas being empowering or self-destroying, and thus raise an eyebrow at the withering effect that all-powerful ideas supposedly have in the end to be rightfully fair. Those labels are too specific as well as lacking in contrast. An idea can begin as a source of hope and gradually twist its own empowerment into a cause of emotional distress or unbalance, perhaps by revealing itself to be false and then continuing to weave a string of shadows into its own pre-established cloth of light. In fact, even labels such as good and bad, positive and negative, are too closely interrelated to be truly separate labels, and instead function as indistinct yet perpetually familiar concepts. They are their own ideas in fact, the same idea. The proposition of good and evil, arguably the most influential idea to date, as archaic as the ideas of life and existence. It seems this relation has gone off course once more, forbidden as it may be to breach the self-created wall of personal disinvolvement regarding one's relation of theories. I would like to privilege myself enough to chip away at that concrete, fable-telling guise, namely to apologize for my own distracted ramblings. I have always been the talkative, imaginative sort, which is why I simply cannot hold these ideas within myself any longer. I have chosen to run an experiment. This experiment may either drastically change the way the world sees itself or turn inward on me as the sole forerunner of these thoughts and ideas. The test is as follows. In this text, I am going to set a rule. Depending on how many people choose to believe and follow this rule, I will judge the truth or believability of my thoughts. I will judge my own ability to change the world. No matter what, I will not tell you whether this rule is good or bad in my opinion, or whether or not I will laugh or not if I see it drifting about in the world. I will simply state this rule and end my post, and we will see where it goes from there. I may revisit this in the future if I am not too badly affected to continue. Here goes everything. Never forget to look over your shoulder. You may catch someone whispering in your ear. Story 5, The Monster is Coming. Thursday night, everyone was blissfully asleep. Reports had spread of a serial killer in the area, but he would only strike on Fridays, so there was no need to worrying. The serial killer had been labeled the Monster, and his M.O. consisted of first sneaking into a house, drugging the victims, and then slowly killing them in their beds. The Monster always left behind a signature, a photograph of him in disguise. Resembling a black-hooded figure with a blank mask, Susan casually walked home from a party. She was dressed in a white suit and had her wavy blonde hair in a ponytail. She passed by a lit house and saw a couple sitting on the front porch and enjoying the stars. "They're so innocent," Susan said with a soft voice. "The next night, make sure you lock up tight tonight, Ed," said Diane. "I locked every door, shut every window, and secured every bolt. We're safe tonight." Ed got in bed and kissed his wife tonight. A few hours passed. Not a sound was made. Ed and Diane were fast asleep. A high-pitched scream woke them both up. It was silence as fast as it came. What was that? Ed asked in fear. "Ellie, go check her room." Diane yelled. Ed ran out of his room and darted down the hall. Before he could make it to his daughter's room, he froze in his tracks to see a dark figure step out of there. The figure had a pale white faceless mask on and stared at Ed. Ed choked on his own scream and ran away as fast as he could. He didn't get far until he fell due to a piercing pain in his foot. He looked and saw that in his panic, his bare foot had stepped on a knife that was planted for him. He grabbed the hilt, trying to take the knife out of his foot, ignoring the blood that slowly made a puddle. The Monster casually walked towards him, not making a sound in those rubber boots. The Monster put one hand over Ed's mouth, and Ed slowly felt his vision blur as he drifted into a deep sleep. Ed woke back up, covered in sweat. He looked around and saw that he was in his bathroom, naked, sitting on the toilet, hands tied together under the bowl, and with a piece of barbed wire deep inside a cut in his stomach. He saw his wife in the bathtub, also naked with her hands tied to the spout. A white string was attached to the hot water knob. Finally, there was his daughter in her pajamas, standing on the sink. The white string was tied to a board behind her feet. Barbed wire made a noose around her neck. It didn't take Ed long to figure it out. Turning on the hot water would drown and burn Diane. This would trip the string and make Ellie fall off the sink, hanging her with the barbed wire and tearing out Ed's vitals. Ed struggled, trying to get free. However, the Monster returned. In the light, everyone got a good view of the disguise. Black boots, black pants, a black trench coat, a hood, white gloves, and a white mask with the black sockets being the only facial features. They gasped in panic as the Monster observed them. The Monster walked to the tub, making them frantic. Not listening, the Monster sprung the trap. Walking away from the bathroom, Susan removed her mask. She had a disturbing smile, as if she were talking with an old friend, as if the moment in the bathroom didn't happen. She grabbed any evidence and put it in a bag. This is what they get for relying on those spare key hiding fake rocks. Susan was no beast, no ghost, no demon. Susan was only human, but her eyes, those lovely blue eyes, were the eyes of a complete monster story. 6. Dargaya's Nectar. If you ever find Dargaya's Nectar, you'll probably be one of the ones who have been looking for it all their lives, and thus won't need any instructions on what to do with it. Just the same, it's pretty simple, at least to start with. Make sure your affairs are in order in case you have a bad reaction, and then, bottoms up, the coming months are the least pleasant part. You'll find yourself unable to keep food down long before you're far enough along to stop needing it. Same with sleep. The color of your blood will be off, and your veins will consequently stand out more. Expect a few ingrown body parts. Little things, just fingers and ears and teeth, usually pressing up against the skin. Make sure you're caught up on your booster shots because you're never going in for a checkup again or wearing anything more revealing and a trench coat in public. Most likely, eventually, a little cut on your belly will start unhealing, becoming a pus-filled wound in a few days. Over the coming week, 3 things will emerge from this. The first object resembles a greasy black beech nut with maybe a tooth or 2 growing from it. When your dead someone will eventually find it and use it to make a new batch of Dargaya's nectar. Hide it well. Make things fun for future generations. The second object basically looks like a softball-sized cluster of veins, many of them broken and leaking oily black stuff, all wrapped around something. Then it'll squirm and will notice the twisted little skinless fetus in the middle. It will only survive for about 20 seconds. Burn the remains. The third object will, well, let's just call it object 3. Is easier that way. You can plant it anywhere you want. I advise some place where you don't mind spending all your time and no one else would go. Your backyard or under your cellar works if you don't have any roommates. As long as there's fertile soil, dig at least 5 feet down. It won't want to be buried, but just keep piling dirt onto it till you can still hear it when you're finished. You didn't go deep enough. Its veins or roots, I guess, will eventually spread in all direction about 1.5 feet for every year of your life. Grass and weeds will grow stiff and bony or black and oily or take on the color and texture of a spider bite or rice paper. What will be infected too. You'll hear the arteries in your walls pulsing on quiet nights. The ground will rot with dead insect and animal life. Don't mow your lawn. It bleeds like hell. This is your sanctuary. No matter what threats or injuries beset you outside, here you will be safe and healthy. Well, what passes for healthy for you now? And if you really hate someone, bring them here. Trick them into coming. They'll get infected one way or another. A lungful of spore, a thorn prick, a bit of residue on their hand. They will blood vomit, and the blood will have tiny centipedes in it. They'll shit out their own spinal fluids. Their eyes will milk over and hatch. Little spines and brambles will grow from the sockets. They'll survive for months or years. Doctors will be baffled. It will be completely fucking great. That's all for starters. You'll learn more as you go, watch more. But if I told you everything now, you might not do it. Whatever you do, just guard it with your life, with your very soul. If you think you're in danger of losing it, dig it up, kill it with a silver needle. Let someone else make a new one someday. You'll feel as if you've pierced your own heart. But it's better than letting it fall into the wrong hands, because you're a holder now, and you'd better not let them come together. The second object basically looks like a softball-sized cluster of veins, many of them broken and leaking oily black stuff, all wrapped around something. Then it'll squirm and will notice the twisted little skinless fetus in the middle. It will only survive for about 20 seconds. Burn the remains. The third object will, well, Let's just call it Object 3. It's easier that way. You can plant it anywhere you want. I advise some place where you don't mind spending all your time and no one else would go. Your backyard or under your cellar works if you don't have any roommates, as long as there's fertile soil. Dig at least 5 feet down. It won't want to be buried, but just keep piling dirt onto it till you can still hear it when you're finished. You didn't go deep enough. Its veins or roots, I guess, will eventually spread in all direction, about 1.5 feet for every year of your life. Grass and weeds will grow stiff and bony, or black and oily, or take on the color and texture of a spider bite or rice paper. Wood will be infected, too. You'll hear the arteries in your walls pulsing on quiet nights. The ground will rot with dead insect and animal life. Don't mow your lawn. It bleeds like hell. This is your sanctuary. No matter what threats or injuries beset you outside, here you will be safe and healthy. Well, what passes for healthy for you now? And if you really hate someone, bring them here. Trick them into coming. They'll get infected one way or another. A lungful of spore, a thorn prick, a bit of residue on their hand, it will blood vomit, and the blood will have tiny centipedes in it. They'll shit out their own spinal fluids. Their eyes will milk over and hatch. Little spines and brambles will grow from the sockets. They'll survive for months or years. Doctors will be baffled. It will be completely fucking great. That's all for starters. You'll learn more as you go, watch more. But if I told you everything, you might not do it. Whatever you do, just guard it with your life, with your very soul. If you think you're in danger of losing it, dig it up, kill it with a silver needle. Let someone else make a new one someday. You'll feel as if you've pierced your own heart. But it's better than letting it fall into the wrong hands, because you're a holder now, and you'd better not let them come together. Story 7, Torture. Avi, I'm bawling my eyes out as I type this, locked in my closet. For those of you who think this is one of those internet ghost stories, then I envy you. After this, you can just continue on with your lives, but it will catch up with you soon enough. And it's your fault for reading this. Don't try and stop now. It's too late. But if you read on, you might be able to defend those around you. Get away from your loved ones. Don't tell anybody. Embrace death. My story, and soon to be yours, started early in the morning. I checked my mail to find bills, junk, and a small package. I opened the padded envelope from the bottom, and a flash drive fell out. I picked it up after it bounced onto my mat. What's this? I wondered aloud as I examined it. It was a plain black USB stick. I asked my wife in the kitchen if she has ordered anything, but she was just as puzzled about the drive as me. I looked up at the clock. I was almost late for work. I put the mail on the table and dashed out the door. When I arrived at the office, I kept wondering about what could be on the flash drive. Was it some marketing idea, a prank that just contained some stupid video? I decided to check it out once I got home. The day seemed to drag after that, as I curious to find out what was on that stick. When I finally arrived home, I found my wife's body in bloody ribbons across the living room floor. I was about to scream hysterically when I noticed a faint glow. I turned to see my wife's laptop turned on with a blank screen. With tears in my eyes, I crossed the room over the bloody mess on the floor to the computer. I tapped the space bar and the screen lit up. There was a file named Torture, Avi, and a folder named Removable Disk. I looked down, and sure enough the USB stick was in the USB port. Without thinking, I clicked on the file. A video automatically started playing, a black and white video of a 7, maybe 8-year-old girl in a bed. After 20 seconds or so, the girl suddenly sits up in bed. Her eyes snap open, revealing white, pea-green orbs. Her body hovers a few feet into the air. Then an earth-shattering scream issues from her mouth. It sounds inhuman, not even animalistic. It is the scream of something too sinister to even register. Suddenly the scene is a street that looks familiar to me. The cameraman walks down the street until he reaches a house that also seems familiar to me. Suddenly, my heartbeat quickens. My mouth turns dry as I realize that the cameraman is walking up the path to my door. I jump as there's a knock on my door. I look through the frosted glass, and I see a dark hooded figure. Without realizing it, my legs are carrying me through my hallway. As I was locking the door of my bedroom, I heard my front door being flung off the hinges. I barricaded the door as best I could and grabbed my laptop. I climbed into this very closet, and here I am. I am about to die, I know that. I can hear whoever or whatever the thing is banging down my door right now. I just wanted to tell my story before I pass. Soon, you will receive the same flash drive. Do not watch it. Dispose of it. Oh God, it's in the room. It's in the room. It's in the room. Bonus stories. Story 1. When rain comes, it begins gently at first, softly falling like a child's tears. It is a sad thing, but not so unusual and wholesome in its way. And the wind lightly blows, almost tenderly caressing your face. This will not last, but it's nice, isn't it? In the beginning there were two, and they knew love of a kind. The rain comes down harder now, no longer a child's gentle weeping, and not quite an adult's passionate cries for a lost love. It is somewhere in between. Then, too, the wind picks up, catching your hair, causing it to fall across your face. It speaks, in the way that wine speaks, a soft moan. Nothing more yet. Time passed, and the two brought forth children. The children built and bred and grew, thousands, then millions. The rain has not changed. It does not fall with greater intensity, but in the distance the faint sound of rolling thunder and the flash of a great light. The voice of the wind calls out to it. The clouds gather more strongly. The two were not man and woman, but that is close in the full distance of time. They grew apart, and so their children suffered. She was not happy with him, but she would not leave him. The rain falls strongly now. If you were not wet before, you are now. The wind's moan has changed to a howl, and the lightning grows closer. The air is charged with possibility. She loved them, but to him they were a barrier, something that caused the coldness that had grown between them. Perhaps that is why she said nothing when they drove him out. The storm is a storm in truth now. The rain stings a little as it falls, water dripping from your hair. The wind's howling pierces your clothing, finding any gap and driving itself through it, perhaps seeking your warmth. You should find shelter, but something is about to happen. Generation upon generation grew, lived, and died. They forgot her name and his. She was still with them, though, and they still loved her in their way. But he they lost entirely. He watched from beyond, unable to touch her. Sometimes he lashed out at the skies. The lightning is closed now, illuminating the entire night sky. The thunder crackling within a minute or so of the lightning. It should feel cold, shouldn't it? The wind is strong and the rain is fierce, but you are not cold. There is an energy building. A crack has formed in his millennia-old prison. He feels it and rages against it. Throwing his might towards it, the crack widens. You stand there, silently staring at the raging heavens. As lightning cracks open the vault of the sky, the lines of light hang suspended in the air after they should have ended. Something is coming. He feels freedom. He goes to it. Soon he will be with his bride once more. He is coming. He is angry at Jimmy Reinstadler. A crack has formed in his millennia-old prison. He feels it and rages against it. Throwing his might towards it, the crack widens. You stand there, silently staring at the raging heavens as lightning cracks open the vault of the sky. The lines of light hang suspended in the air after they should have ended. Something is coming. He feels freedom. He goes to it. Soon he will be with his bride. Once more, he is coming. He is angry. Story 2. Sever the cord. Many have speculated that the plane in which we live is not the only plane in existence. Those who say this will usually then go on to ponder realms of mystery and wonder. The truth is, there is a second plane, but it is not filled with the euphoric images that most people conjure up. However, it is not filled with horrors either. Rather, it is a perfect emulation of our world. There is no difference at all. Whatever exists in our plane also exists on the second plane. Even you exist on the second plane. In fact, those copies of ourselves, those extra-dimensional clones, are bonded to us. Whatever action we take, they take, and vice versa. That means that, in the other plane, that other you is reading this. Right now, in this second plane, there is only one difference. A God resides there, though some may call him a devil, watching over the mirrors of those in our realm. This God has no mirror. There is only one way to escape this constant watching, but it could come at a terrible price. Stand before a mirror. You see your reflection. That is your copy. Look him straight in the eye, and will with all of your might that what you see before you is not you. Rather, it is a perfect emulation of you. As soon as you have made this mental breakthrough, turn off the lights, wait a while, about 2 minutes should do. Then turn them back on. Your reflection will be gone. You have just severed the bond between you and your copy. You can no longer see him, but he exists now. However, you will be free to do as you please without your copy mirroring it, and without the God knowing what you are doing. You could murder 1,000 people and walk without fear of retribution. However, it is not recommended that you do this. As you sever the bond, the same decay that affected the bond will eat slowly up the remnants of one side of the cord. As it reaches whichever you was on that particular side, it will begin to eat away at its soul. Whichever version of you is affected will become sicklier, paler. It will stink of death. Its movements will become stiff. As it nears the final stages of this illness, it will become merely a shadow of itself. It becomes a ghost, cursed to forever roam whatever existence it resides in, a shattered soul and lost cause. However, if it is not you that is affected by this illness, but your copy, you will walk free. You will walk without judgment. You will be a god among men. But be careful, for if that disease eats up your side of the cord, you will fall prey to its effects. Trust me, I know. Story 3. May 2013 discussion post. What's your favorite creepy video game? I've had some people ask that I set up a page with recommendations for scary books, movies, video games, etc. But since I'd surely leave out some quality stuff if I compiled the list completely on murder mysteries, psychological thrillers, if you can conceivably consider it a creepy game, feel free to recommend it, and please do tell us why you chose that game in particular. As people suggest their favorites, I'll turn this up into a master list of the community's favorite spooky video games, with links to download or buy said games if possible. So if you're recommending an indie or fan-made game that can't be easily found on Amazon, please leave a link to its official website download page to make things easier for me. Thanks for the help, and have fun. Story 4. The guy I never knew existed before, but now you're all I can think about. From the moment I saw you, something within me said, that's it. That's the one. I was nervous because I have never been a guide before, but I know I am ready for this moment. The last thing I remember before dying was reading a small card, then looking up and seeing terrible red eyes peering into mine. Since this is my first time, I decided to do what my guide did for me. You finally step outside your car and walk inside, stumbling a little on the icy sidewalk and tearing tentatively at the icicles above. If I was able, I would laugh at the memory of my mother, or perhaps it was my grandmother, so long ago warning me of the deadly danger that icicles pose. But now I know better. That isn't how death works at all. You slam the door behind you, but I glide through confidently, for I know I am still invisible to your eyes. You turn toward the bathroom, and I blush and choose not to follow. Instead, I explore your house and ponder on what sort of person you must be. I wonder if you will take this gracefully or filled with terror. I wonder if you are ready. I self-consciously pull at my long black robe and glance again at the card I hurriedly wrote, making sure my writing is legible. As you exit the bathroom and head to the kitchen, I take my opportunity and lay the card gently on your table, where I know you must sooner or later notice it. Take your time, though we are in no rush. You hum Bohemian Rhapsody yourself as you pull a frozen dinner from the freezer and pop it in the microwave. I consider starting a fire to make my first guiding experience more grand, but I think you would prefer it my way. I could almost feel an echo of my long-stilled heart as you turn around and fixate on my note. Tearing around anxiously, you bend down to pick it up and read it. I get into place, because I know as soon as you read my name, you will be able to see me, and I must make myself terrifyingly presentable. This is so exciting. My name is Death. I am not the only death, but one of many. See, most people think of death as falling asleep and waking up on another side, but that's not right at all. Death is like being pulled by your ankle deep into the depths of the oceans, sudden, inexplicable, and suffocating. I am here to drag you there, for none can achieve death on their own. You shudder in confusion and look up to see me. A guttural and unearthly scream escapes your lips. Really, am I that terrible? As I reach out for your hand and pull you through your dimension into mine, as the mortals see it, to your death. Story 5. To Bright, my older brother, is a cop. Naturally, he has a protective instinct over me. His little only sister, the cop factor, does not help. I was always babied by my family, but me and Greg, my brother, always had a closer bond. Whenever one of my other brothers picked on me, he would get super mad at them. When I was about 12 years old, he met his fiancée and got serious with her. I was so worried she would steal my brother away, and I would never see him anymore. He quickly reassured me, and I soon began to think of his fiancée as the sister I never had. Anyway, as I said, he is a cop. He worked crazy hours, normally coming home around 3 to 4 in the morning. Every night, upon arrival, he would shine his bright flashlight into my room. My bed is against the same wall as my door, so I never saw him, but I always knew it was him. He did it just to check up on me, I was sure. I didn't mind being woken up, and appreciated the comfort it gave me. Oddly enough, I don't think any of my other family members being woken with beams of light at strange hours. I chalked it up to the fact that I was the only one who left my door open at night. For a while, I enjoyed the nightly ritual. However, towards mid-January of my senior year, I was stressed. College was a looming monolith that I could not handle. My boss had me working 6 days a week, requiring me to wake up at 7 a.m. even on the days I didn't have school, and I needed the sleep I could get. What was once a small, almost funny comfort to me was now one of the biggest nuisances of my life. When I was awoken by the small beam of light, I wouldn't be able to fall back asleep, and my frustration only grew as I brooded into the early hours of morning. One night I snapped at my brother to stop as the light appeared. He didn't answer, and I was worried I hurt his feelings. Oh well, I thought. At least he would get the hint. But it didn't stop. Finally, after a few more nights, once I saw the beam, I got up to confront my brother. When I walked into the hallway, it was empty. I ran to my window only to find that my brother's car wasn't there, meaning he wasn't even home from work yet. I confronted my brother the next day. He said he stopped shining the light in on me months ago because my mother hinted at him that I needed the sleep. We never figured out where the light was from, and I started sleeping with my door shut. This is a creepypasta success story, a story that was rewritten with the feedback received on creepypasta and accepted for the main site. You can see the creepypasta posting for this story here. Story 6, A Silent Reminder. During the Second World War, many families in Berlin were confined to shelters for days, sometimes weeks, while outside air raids flew overhead. Many of the children, who were supposed to be at school making friends, were instead put under great stress. However, during this time, the English government, in an attempt to raise morale, began a large-scale propaganda campaign, the most noticeable of which was the Keep Calm and Carry On poster. However, less notable was the British government's contracting of Wonderment Toys and Co. to produce free stuffed bears, which were handed out to kids and families around Berlin during raids. The toys were made by war prisoners under forced labor, and at very little expense to the ministries. The project was soon discarded, though after a massive loss of manpower in the workhouses. On the 6th of June 1942, the bodies of over 300 prisoners were found in the workhouses of one toy manufacturers. The bodies were described as still chained to the workbenches, but butchered, bisected from head to crotch, and void of all internal organs. Baffled by the massacre, the police were unable to find any leads to who may have been behind the event, but mentioned in the reports that the toys and workstations remained untouched. 3 days after the workhouse massacre, There was a series of small bombings near the north suburban end of Berlin. While causing little damage, the explosions were thought to be responsible for the disappearance of the final shipment of bears, which never arrived at the towns. The week after the countryside bombings, a large air raid hit most of Berlin, and in the wake of the raid came a spree of missing children's reports from north. This, while tragic, was nothing more than a footnote as the war began to reach its peak. The documents following the case reveal no connections to the workhouse massacre, save a disturbing report by an elderly woman living in the suburbs on the night of the air raid. Sue Geese, the elderly woman, reported seeing a large group of children gathered in the streets through her window. The children appeared to be playing with their toy bears. After a few hours, the raid sirens sounded and Miss Geese ran to the bunker screaming at the children to run home. According to Geese, the children did not hear her or simply ignored her. During the bombings, Geese claimed to hear screaming that seemed hollow and metallic over the explosions, but upon leaving the bunker found only the children's stuffed bears, which, according to Geese, were actually in good condition considering the damage surroundings. Other reports from the area not related to the missing children concerned a bad smell, described as rotting meat for 3 days after the raid. The children were never found, yet another tragedy born in the horrors of World War II. However, if you look in antique shops, you can still find the bears today, a silent reminder of the hardships endured by the people of England. Story 7. The Name of One. Names, words assigned to other human beings to identify them to their fellow human beings. We walk around every day, calling out to one another, using words of a specific language to address a chosen person. Even without knowing a person's name, we still use them to direct our thoughts, like the blonde woman or the man with a beard. All of these words describe and name the people and world around us. These words direct us. But what if there were no names? What if we walked by someone we knew by looks, but could not call out to them to get their attention? What would life be like then? Would our thoughts hold a coherent structure? Would we even know each other? Popular talk shows couldn't exist in this reality because they couldn't name who they would talk to. Confusion would follow the presidential elections, as no one would know who they were voting for. School would be harder, since you would be meeting new people that you wouldn't even recognize. Our brains could not survive without naming people. Our minds would fill with thoughts, but no one to direct them to, no one to name. Words like blonde or bearded would carry no weight, for those are names given to those we do not know. Languages would no longer be functional. If there were no names, nothing to describe a person, would they even exist? Could they exist? Is that why names were invented? To hold the human reality in place? Is that the price to pay for being withheld to a word given to you, one you didn't even choose? Is being trapped by a word worth your existence? People who change their names can create a whole new reality for themselves. Breaking away from a particular word can open up thousands of possibilities. Also, those people that give you names, do they own you? Are you withheld to their power, their will? We name animals, and by society's standards, we own the animals we name. If the government named you, would that mean that they owned you? Is being safe inside the confines of reality mean you give up your freedom? That is the conclusion I came to. Now you may be wondering why I asked you all these difficult questions. You may have already left The ravings of a mad woman set to torture your subconscious is not worth the time it takes to listen. Exactly what your captors want you to think. Who do you think started the naming process? Wouldn't be the people that own you as well as the entire human race. Reality is what we believe our world exists in, what we don't want to break away from, when, in fact, it is the very thing that holds you hostage, holds you back from true freedom. Now that you've realized this, I only have one last question for you. What is your name?